Hi all. In today's session we are going to deal with the topic SPWM inverter. In the last class we have studied about a stepped wave inverter. Uh, we also mentioned about the problems associated with the stepped inverter. Mainly the problems was caused due to the harmonic contents, especially the lower order harmonics which are present. Due to the presence of this lower order harmonics, there used to be pulsating torques and the machine, the losses also used to be comparatively high. So this all results in the derating of the machines, further results in derating of machines, and even it is very difficult to achieve the smooth speed control at lower speeds. So in order to rectify all these problems which is associated with the stepped wave inverter, we have to study in detail about the SPWM inverter, because in the case of a PWM inverter, all these problems which is already mentioned in the last class can be rectified. So let's look into the PWM inverter in detail. The basic structure of the inverter circuits remains the same whether it's SPWM inverter or six-stepped wave inverter. And this is the basic structure of the inverter circuit. In the right side it's shown the how the pulses for this how the control signals, pulses or control signals for this devices are generated in the case of a SPWM inverter. In the case of SPWM inverter, just not only in the case of SPWM inverter, for all types of inverters, so the control signals are obtained by using a comparator. This comparator will be, in the case of SPWM inverter, this comparator will be comparing the signals which is being generated by a sine wave generator, and this will be compared with a carrier signal, and the output pulses will be given to the, see, these are the output pulses which you will be obtaining here, and that will be given to the corresponding switches. You must very well aware that the control signal which is being provided to switch 1 and the control signal which is being provided to switch S4, both the signals must be complement to each other. Complement to each other means inverts to each other. Otherwise what will happen is, if the same control signal is being provided to both the switches, means these two switches will turn on at the same instant, and it results in the short circuit of this branch or short circuit of the source, and it should be avoided. In order to avoid this, there is only one solution. The control signal which is being provided to switch S1 and the control signal which is being provided to switch S4 must be complement to each other. So if you are seeing here, initially we will be comparing this from sine wave generator. We will be obtaining three sine waves which are 120, which are having 120 degrees phase shift. So the first sine wave, while comparing it with the carrier signal, you will be getting the signal, you will be getting the control signal. So what you are seeing here is the same controls. You might feel that the same control signal is being provided to S1 and S4, but it's not like that. The control signal which will be obtaining here, we will be giving it to switch S1 directly. We will be giving to switch S1, and the control signal which is being provided to S4 will be not, means after achieving not operation on the control signal which is being provided to the S1, then only you will be getting the complementary of the control signal which is being given to the switch S1. Another interesting part of this SPWM inverter is comparing with that of the stepped wave inverter is in the case of a stepped wave inverter, in order to obtain a variable DC, you have used the chopper circuit and all, but here there is no need for such sort of variable DC arrangements at the input side in order to get the variable output. That means you don't have to provide a separate arrangement for providing a variable DC supply. Rather, you can easily obtain the variable AC output by just varying the modulation index. See the relation of inverter output. Here VD is the DC input voltage which will be providing here. Let that be the fixed one. So if by just varying the value of M, that is the modulation index, you will be able to achieve a variable AC output voltage. So you don't have to provide a separate arrangement in order to get a variable DC at the input side so as to obtain variable AC at the output side. Next, let's see the advantages of SPWM inverter. In order to see the advantages of SPWM inverter, generally we are here in this session, we are making, or we are telling this advantages of SPWM inverter with respect to the stepped wave inverter. So here if you are seeing, I have provided the line voltages in the case of stepped wave inverter and in the case of a SPWM inverter. You will be able to see in the case of SPWM inverter, the pulse widths are different. Starting the pulse widths are small, then the pulse widths are increasing, thereafter the pulse widths are decreasing. Means this is actually not the pulse width, this is actually just like how you have obtained the stepped wave at the output. This is actually the same output voltage which you are getting when we are using SPWM inverter. So comparing with the stepped wave inverter, here the shape resembles that of a sinusoidal wave. Since the shape resembles that of the sinusoidal wave, comparing with that of the stepped wave inverter, the harmonic content also will be very much reduced. As we have mentioned before, it is the harmonics which had created all the problems in the case of a stepped wave inverter. Since in the case of SPWM inverter, the amount of harmonics has been reduced tremendously. So there will be a large changes associated with the losses, and the smooth speed control and all can be easily achieved. Those are the advantages while comparing with that of the stepped wave inverter. See, you will be able to see here the points which I have just told is mentioned here. Another thing you will be able to see here, when we are using PWM inverter, the same circuit you have seen before also. When you are using PWM inverter, you don't have to provide any chopper circuits or any other circuit arrangement to obtain a variable DC supply. I will just give you a comparison. Here we are using PWM inverter. Before, in the case of a stepped wave inverter, the same circuit you will be able to see with the chopper arrangement here. See, the same circuit you will be able to see here, 6-step inverter. In order to obtain, because you need a variable DC supply in order to get a variable AC supply here. But in this case, you can obtain the variable AC supply by varying the modulation index. Similarly, if you are seeing the second circuit, that is when the supply is AC. In the previous case, we have used a control rectifier. In this case, we don't have to use a control rectifier, we can use a diode bridge rectifier. The difference between using control rectifier and diode bridge rectifier is, if you are using a control rectifier, you will be able to obtain the variable DC at its output. If you are using diode bridge rectifier, you will be definitely getting a constant DC at its output. So here also you can see, there we used 6-step inverter, here we are using PWM inverter. So the changes in the circuit arrangement is also there. Since we are if you are considering the second figure, since you are using this diode bridge rectifier comparing with that of a control rectifier, the power factor of the system also will be good in this case while comparing with that of the previous 6-step inverter case, or while comparing with that of the control rectifier case. In this case, the power factor will be great. Just like we have already explained, since in the case of SPWM inverter comparing with that of stepped wave inverter, amount of harmonics has been reduced very much. So definitely the losses are also reduced very much. Since the losses are reduced very much, the efficiency will be high. So the derating also means lower derating of the mesh motor can also be achieved rather than higher derating. Okay, these are the major advantages of the SPWM inverter. Hope it's clear for you. Next, we are going to study the lesson on breaking of VSI fed induction motor drive. Here you are going to study about two types of braking in mainly. One is dynamic braking and the other is regenerative braking. Let's look into the details. So if you are looking here, this is actually the input power equation of a induction motor. Let's see the motoring operation first. In the case of motoring operation, definitely the rotor will be running with a speed which is less than that of the rotating magnetic field, because the rotating magnetic field is running at synchronous speed. Rotor will be definitely running at a speed which is less than that of the synchronous speed. So in that case, the relative, let us assume that particular relative value sign as positive during motoring operation. Now you see during braking operation, uh, before that I will be just giving you an example of what is actually motoring operation in the case of induction motor and braking operation in the case of the induction motor. Suppose a locomotive which is being supplied by induction motor or a locomotive which is being fed by a induction motor drive. If it is taking a or if it is climbing an uphill, definitely the operation will be motoring. The same locomotive while taking a downhill operation, or if it is moving in or if it is descending in a downhill, definitely what happens is the speed of the rotor will be going greater than that of the synchronous speed. Comparing with the uphill, during the uphill motion, definitely the operation is motoring, no doubt in that. I have very clearly explained all this in the 4-quadrant operation which we have learned in the first module. So comparing with the motoring operation, if you are seeing or comparing with the locomotive motion in a uphill, if the same locomotive which is being fed by a AC induction motor drive, so if it is taking a descending operation or if it is moving a downhill, definitely what happens is the speed of the rotor is going greater than that of the synchronous speed. So comparing with that of the motoring operation, the relative speed polarity also will be getting reversed. In a much simpler way, I can tell you, suppose during motoring operation, let the synchronous speed be 1500 rpm. So during motoring operation, if the motor is running at 1450 rpm, the relative speed will be 1500 minus 1450, that is actually 50 rpm. If that same locomotive is taking a descending operation and if its speed is greater than the synchronous speed, suppose if its speed comes to be around 1550 rpm or 1600 rpm, in that case the relative velocity will be 1500 minus 1600. Definitely the polarity of the relative velocity has been reversed. So this has an impact on the rotary EMF. So the rotary EMF polarity will get reversed. As the relative velocity polarity is changed, means definitely the rotary EMF polarity and rotor current polarities are all will get changed. You have studied about the vector diagram of induction motor in your machines class. So if the polarity like E2R and I2, all those polarities are getting reversed, means definitely what happens is the angle between V and IS will become greater than 90. So if the angle between V and IS is becoming greater than 90, means this P input power, in this P input power, the polarity also will get reversed. The value of P input will become negative. So during motoring operation, the value of IS will be less than 90, and during braking operation, the value of IS is greater than 90. So what happens is this power input is positive, indicates that the motor is taking power from the supply. If its value is negative, it indicates that it is feeding power back to the supply. So definitely during the braking operation, the motor will be operating as a generator and it will be feeding power back to the supply. Okay, that is the distinguishing factor between the regenerative braking and dynamic braking. If it is working as a generator and if it is feeding the power back to the supply, then we can say it as regenerative braking. If it is if that power which is obtained or the generating power which is produced during braking operation is being dissipated in a resistance, then we can call it as a dynamic braking. Let's get into the dynamic braking and regenerative braking in detail. First we will look into dynamic braking. So this is the circuit of dynamic braking. AC supply is there, diode bridge is there. Since we are using PWM inverter, we can use diode bridge. If we have used stepped wave inverter, we might be using a chopper arrangement, or we will be, sorry, not chopper arrangement here, since the supply is AC, we will be using a control rectifier here rather than uncontrolled one, which we have used here now. This diode bridge is actually known as uncontrolled rectifier. Here there is one switch SW, here there is another switch named as S, capacitor is there, and this is the resistance where the power which is being obtained from the induction motor is getting dissipated. Let's look into the normal motoring operation. First, during motoring operation, the switch will remain closed. Then the power will be feeding from the AC supply to the induction motor, and the induction motor is running. Then let's look into the braking operation. So during the braking operation, or when the operation is being shifted from motoring to braking, we will be just opening the switch SW. The power which is being fed back from the induction motor, because at the time of braking operation, definitely induction motor will be acting as a generator. The power which is being fed back from the induction motor will be stored in this capacitor. So definitely the capacitor voltage will keep on increasing. Initial condition, not only this switch is remaining open, even this switch also will remain open. So this capacitor will be keeping on charging, and we will be actually setting a value for this capacitor. Once when this capacitor voltage has reached that particular set value, at that instant the switches will remain closed. So what happens is, whatever charge or to whatever value this capacitor is being charged, it is now getting dissipated through this resistance. All the power will be getting dissipated through this resistance R. So as long as this power is being dissipated in this resistance, the capacitor keeps on discharging. When this voltage across this DC link falls below a nominal value, at that particular instant again we will be keeping the switch S in open mode. Then further the same procedure will be repeated. Further, this capacitor will be getting charged like this. Capacitor will be getting charged. Once this capacitor is getting completely charged, then again the switches will get closed, and the power which is being stored in the capacitor will be dissipated through the resistor. When the voltage across this DC link, or when the voltage across this capacitor falls below a nominal value, then at that particular instant we will be opening this switch S. So this is how we are doing the dynamic braking in the case of induction motor for DC drive. In the case of PWM inverter fed induction motor drive. Next, we are going to the detail of regenerative braking. You are familiar with the circuit. In the previous slide, I have already explained the circuit. See, but here the current direction was into the induction motor, but now since it's braking operation, the current direction has been reversed. See, you will be able to see now the current direction is not into the induction motor, it is flowing away from induction motor to the DC source, but the polarity at this terminals remains the same. So if you are looking in here, the power which is being generated at the induction motor during braking operation will be converted back to DC, and we will be providing it to the supply. So during braking operation, definitely this will be acting like a rectifier, because the supply has to be, means like a control rectifier, because the supply has to be converted back to DC. Then only we will be able to supply it back to this DC source. Similarly, here also this will be acting as a rectifier. Then only during braking operation, the power or the AC power which is being generated can be converted to DC in this DC link, and this will be definitely acting as an inverter, because then only this DC power can be fed back to the AC supply. Then if you want this DC power to be fed back to the AC supply, definitely this must be acting as a inverter. In order to make it to act as inverter, the firing angle has to be given with a value which is greater than 90, or the firing angle must lie between 90 and 180. So in both these cases, it is very clearly mentioned the direction of the current. The polarity at the DC link remains the same, but the direction of current has been reversed, comparing with the same diagram which we have seen in the previous slides during motoring operation. Here it is explaining about the regenerative braking. So in the regenerative braking operation, definitely the circuit remains the same. Only difference is the current polarity has been changed. Okay, so don't get confused. Rather than using a control rectifier, you can use dual converter also here. Uh, this dual converter also will help to feed back this DC power into AC supply. Next topic we are looking into is the synchronous link converter. The best part of synchronous link converter is the synchronous link converter makes the induction motor to operate at unity power factor. That's the best part. Comparing with the regenerative braking technique, which has been already explained here using this control rectifier or dual converter. Instead of that control rectifier or dual converter which is being used here, uh, instead of this we will be using a synchronous link converter. So the best part of using synchronous link converter is during motoring operation and induction motor, the operation will be conducted at unity power factor. So the best part is the overall performance will be definitely much better comparing with the already explained regenerative technique here. So let's look into the detail of synchronous link converter. This is the circuit arrangement of synchronous link converter. Already this is a PM inverter fed induction motor drive. So this is the synchronous link converter. This is the AC source, and the supply voltage is mentioned as Vs, and the supply current is mentioned as Is. The synchronous link converter mainly consists of a PWM inverter and 3 inductors which is mentioned here as Ls. So from the diagram it's very clear that this inductors and this PWM inverter, both this inductors and PWM inverter together constitute the synchronous link converter. Let me explain to you the basic operation of the synchronous link converter. So if you are looking here, the supply voltage is indicated as Vs, and the voltage drop which is coming across this Ls is indicated as Vx. You can rather indicate it as Is into XLS, like that also you can indicate. And this is actually this inverter terminal voltage. So during braking operation, the power will be feeding from this induction motor side to the source side. So definitely this will be acting as a rectifier. So in this DC link you will be getting the DC voltage, and this will be acting as inverter, and the output of this inverter you will be getting the voltage V1. So this inverter firing angle can be controlled in such a way that the output V1 will be obtained so that the phase angle between Vs and Is remains to be 0. How it has a dependency on the phase voltage between Vs and Is means, definitely you know that from Vs, if you are subtracting the voltage drop across this inductor, you will be getting the value of V1. So if you are able to make V1 in such a way that the phase angle between Vs and Is is 0, then definitely the operation can be achieved as unity power factor operation. See this diagram during motoring operation, and this is the case during braking operation. So if you are seeing here, the angle between Vs and Is is retained at 0. This is clearly explaining the motoring operation. So in the case of motoring operation, you very well aware that the power will be flowing from AC side to the motor side. So definitely the voltage which is coming here will be the supply voltage minus the drop across the inductor. So if you are looking here, uh, if you want the Vs and Is angle to be, or the angle between Vs and Is to be 0, then definitely the V1 value has to be, the magnitude of V1 must be this much, and the phase angle between Vs and V1 must be del, which is being mentioned here. If this has to happen, then the value of Is must be adjusted in such a way that the voltage drop across the inductor must be only this much. Okay, so definitely there must be a controlled or a controller to adjust the value of this firing angle in the inverter so as to obtain the value of V1 like that. Only if V1 is obtained in this particular direction and in this particular magnitude, then only we will be getting the phase angle between Vs and Is to be 0. If only the phase angle between Vs and Is is 0, the system will be operating at unity power factor. Similar way you can obtain in the case of braking operation also. In the case of braking operation, definitely the Is will be having a 180 phase shift with that of Vs. So Is will be in this direction. So the V1 is like this. Only if the value of V1 is in this magnitude and the phase of V1 is del with that of Vs, or if you are taking Vs as the reference, then only you will be able to get the operation of the system at unity power factor. So this controller arrangement is there to ensure, I will be explaining that in the next slide. This will ensure that the V1 value, the magnitude of V1, both during motoring operation and braking operation, the V1 magnitude is this much and it is having a phase shift of del from Vs, in order to ensure that the phase angle between Vs and Is is 0. Okay, so accordingly a controller will be working, a controller action will be there, and this controller action will make sure that the switches in the PWM inverter is switched in such a way that the magnitude of V1 and the phase of V1 is in accordance with the phase diagram which has been explained so as to obtain the unity power factor operation. This phasor diagram is similar to that of a synchronous machine. You have studied about in your machines too in detail, how the effect of excitation on this induced DMF, rotor induced DMF. That you have studied there, that vector diagram. I am not going into detail of that since it is having a similarity with that of the vector diagram of the synchronous machine. It is called as synchronous link converter. Next, let's look into the closed loop control operation here. See, if you are looking here, the DC link voltage is mentioned here as VD. So, suppose the power which is taken by this SLC is being fed to the, see, the power which is taken by SLC is being fed to this inverter, means definitely the same power which is being taken by this SLC is being fed to this inverter, means definitely the voltage across this capacitor will remain constant. Similarly, that is during the motoring operation. Similarly, the power which is being taken by this inverter is being fed to this SLC, means definitely the same power which is being fed to this SLC during braking operation. Then in that case also the voltage across this DC link, that is the voltage across this capacitor, will remain constant. So this particular case we can explain, or we can say it as a steady state. Now consider the case if the load of the induction motor has been increased. Okay, suppose if the load on this induction motor has been increased, then definitely the induction motor will be taking more power from the inverter side. So since the induction motor is taking more power from the inverter side, means the power which is being fed from SLC is not sufficient to compensate this overload. So the additional power will be supplying from this capacitor. Since the additional power is being supplying from this capacitor, means the voltage across this DC link or the voltage across this capacitor VD will be getting reduced. So this reference voltage which is being mentioned here as VD star is actually the steady state voltage. So at steady state operation, definitely the error signal will become 0. But in this case, actually there is an unbalance because now the induction motor is being overloaded. So the power which is being supplied by the SLC, I am explaining in respect of motoring operation. Okay. So when the induction motor is being overloaded, the power which is being supplied by the SLC is not sufficient for the PWM inverter. So definitely the additional power will be being supplied by this capacitor. Since the additional power which is being supplied from the capacitor side, definitely the voltage across this capacitor or the DC link voltage magnitude will be getting reduced. Since the DC link voltage is being reduced, definitely the error which is coming here will be a positive error. The positive error will be making this controller to act in such a way that this converter's firing angles will be varied so as to take more current from this AC side. As more current is being taken from the AC side, the DC output also will be increased, which further increase the voltage across this capacitor to the VD value. So this is how the control reaction is taking place. Hence this closed loop operation always ensures that the voltage across this capacitor always remains to be a constant value, or else the voltage which we are providing to the inverter input will always remains to be a constant. So you must very well know the purpose of this closed loop operation. The purpose of this closed loop operation is to maintain this DC voltage link voltage to be always a constant value. So whatever sag which is being occurring here can be easily compensated by this SLC converter. See, definitely just like what we have mentioned here, when the induction motor is being overloaded, definitely the overload power has been supplied from this capacitor side, which results in a voltage sag here. Comparing with the reference value, the voltage has taken a dip. So in order to overcome that, we have used this controller arrangement. So this particular SLC will be acting like a boost converter at that particular instant, and it will be bringing back the voltage across this capacitor, or this DC link voltage will be brought back to the old value. The explanation is mentioned as points here. You can refer into this slide. So now we are moving to the last topic in this voltage source inverter fed induction motor drive. That is actually closed loop speed control operation. So this is the block diagram indicating the closed loop operation. So let's see how we can achieve the speed control using this closed loop operation. Actually, there is one outer speed control loop, and there is one inner slip speed controller loop. Actually, these two loops are there. Outer loop is said to be speed loop, and the inner loop is said to be, this is actually the outer loop, and this is the inner loop, and the inner loop is said to be slip speed loop. So let's look into this, how this closed loop operation is working actually. So the actual speed will be measured here using a speed sensor or a tacho generator, and the reference speed is given here. This is actually a PI controller to compensate this error. So suppose the actual speed is 1300, and if you want the speed to be 1500, and let the if you want the speed to be 1400, that is the reference speed. Actual speed is 1300, and let the synchronous speed of the machine be 1500 rpm. So definitely the error which will be coming here is 1400 minus 1300, that is 100. In order to compensate that, we will be using a PI controller, and after this PI controller we will be using a slip regulator, and the output of the slip regulator will be the slip speed. Slip speed, slip speed is generally indicated as ns minus n. So you will be getting that particular value of ns minus n here. Along with that, you will be adding the actual speed. So definitely ns minus n plus n. See here, the summer we are using both addition operation. So ns minus n will be the output which you will be getting from these two blocks here. So this ns minus n, if you are adding it with n, then definitely the output will be ns, that is a synchronous speed. So once if you are able to obtain the synchronous speed, then definitely from the synchronous speed relation, synchronous speed is equal to 120 f by p. From that particular relation, you will be able to compute the value of frequency. That frequency we will be giving it to the inverter. Okay. So now we know the frequency which has to be, or the frequency of the output of or the output signal's frequency is being obtained here, and we will be giving to the inverter, and accordingly the inverter switching action will take place so as to obtain the output signal at this particular frequency itself. Okay. This arrangement you know very well. This is actually a inverter circuit. Input is a DC supply, and this is the DC link, and this is the inverter. So now let's see. Now we know the what must be the output of this induction motor fed. What must be the output frequency of PWM inverter? We know we have obtained it as F by using this particular arrangement. Definitely, you very well know that in the scalar control, we will be using different techniques to achieve speed control. But the closed loop operation, which is mentioned here, is in order to obtain the V by F method of speed control. So, PWM inverter output must be in such a way that V by F ratio must be always retained as a constant value. So, from this F or from this omega ms, you have computed the value of frequency. Okay. If that particular value of frequency, if you are giving it as input to this flex control block, definitely this flex control block is the one which ensures that the value of flex is remained as a constant value. So if you are giving that particular value of frequency to this flex control block, definitely by using the computations over here, you will be able to get the value of voltage corresponding to this particular value of frequency, so that the flex will be remaining as a constant value. So that voltage you will be getting it here, that voltage you will be giving it as a reference. Then see, the feedback voltage will be taken from or taken by using a voltage sensor here. So this is the reference voltage, and this is the actual voltage at which the machine is working. Then we will be using a voltage controller to compensate this error signal, and the output of this voltage controller will be the modulation index at which the inverter has to be operated. So if the inverter is operated at this particular modulation index, means definitely you will be able to achieve the desired voltage at this terminals. Already you have achieved the desired frequency by providing this frequency as input to this PWM inverter. So by varying the value of M, definitely you will be able to obtain the inverter output at the desired voltage corresponding to a particular value of frequency. So the net effect is finally the induction motor will be operating at the desired speed. Here we have started the desired speed as I guess it is 1400 I guess. So we will be getting the induction motor speed at 1400. So definitely the as the speed is being varied, the value of V and value of F also will be getting changed. Correspondingly, that particular values of inputs will be providing to the inverter, means what are the changes which are occurring in the value of F, and what is the change which is occurring in the value of M corresponding to the value of V. So accordingly, the PWM inverter will be conducting the switching pattern so as to obtain the desired V by F or the desired so as to obtain a constant V by F value in order to get the desired speed. Okay. The explanation of this block diagram is also clearly given here. It's very important. It's generally asked in the university exams. Okay. Thank you.